Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. And do you know what? I was thinking, we'll do the usual intro. We'll go on about OurGame and the brilliant jerseys they have. And I was like, and I'll bring up this Offaly jersey that, you've the baby down the room and you can't be disturbed the baby. And all that kind of stuff. And then the big smirk on your face as the show's about to go live. You've ruined the whole thing.
Literally, it's nearly more than 70. It's nearly 72 hours now at this stage. I've had a grin across my face. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was the perfect story with the perfect ending. It was it just had everything, and as everyone in Offaly's on an absolute cloud the last couple of days. It's been magnificent. It's like I said it to you kind of privately before. It's like, to me, it's like the 1990s all over again, but you're older and you appreciate it now. Do you know when you just don't appreciate it when you're younger and you were going to Crow Park every Sunday and it was great at the time, but all of a sudden you don't have that for nearly 25 years and it's like, this is just unbelievable. And yeah, just for them to back up all the hype and, even all the lads doing interviews the Sunday beforehand and everyone been available for media and people are only waiting to throw that back in their face. Oh, they did X, Y, and Z wrong. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. They delivered on the pitch when it mattered most.
Yeah, okay, we'll get some of the comments here. Verney's fixing his hair. That's why we probably started a minute or so late. The best team won the under-20s, 36 and counting, Kilkenny, man. It was all just a dream, Verney. Scooby says, got it for Tip. Best team won. Congrats, Offaly. Let's hope a good few of them come through. Hurling needs Offaly back with the big boys. So it was 220 to 214. And before much more is said, I have no trouble with the scoreline at all. I think the team that performed better on the day absolutely won. Yeah, and I think the scenes that we had afterwards were unbelievable. And you would never have got those scenes because obviously Tipperary have won a few titles in the past. So for ye, and I know you've now won, you've selectively picked all the different grades from the two coaches.
Isn't that mad, Shannon? That mad? That is crazy. Like, we're only the third county to do it. And I think we're only the second.
Well, list it out for people who don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, basically, Offaly have won the minor 20/21 and senior in both codes, and only Cork and Galway have done that. So that's like it is mad. And I think Cork are the only other ones to have won an All-Star in every position, football and hurling, along with Offaly, which is nuts, really, considering you're pulling from a population of a little less than probably 85,000. And even to have won the under-20 football in Ireland a couple of years ago in 2021, and then 3 years later win a hurling one is mad. It's crazy. And Johnny Pilkington's the only one to have all three now. One as a coach / selector, the 20s, and he obviously has a minor and a senior as a player. Yeah, it's crazy. And it was a magnificent way to finish it off. Outside of probably the first maybe 15 minutes, I thought he had the better of it maybe in the first 15 minutes. We started well, got 2 points on the board quick. He got the penalty. You were 1-3 to 3 up. And then, he scored 2 points from there to half time, and Offaly tagged on 9. And realistically, probably always had you at arm's length, even though, when we got the goal, and then you go down and get a goal down the far end, that was a killer. And even you responded to the second goal with, I think, 2 points in a row, and they're kind of thinking, oh, you just want that buffer. You want it to mean a bit more. And I thought maybe Tip just hung in there. But in fairness, yeah, we did probably the better hurling for maybe 50 minutes or that. And some of it was champagne stuff. Like, Dan Burke's goal was just outrageous in the second half. To me, he's turned into a little clone of Tom Morrissey now at this stage. Even just the gatch of him and the same kind of style and the way he leans back off his left. The way he took that goal was superb. And Barry Egan hadn't done too much maybe in the last couple of games, but he fairly delivered in the final with 1-2 and came out with a good comment after. He just said, I know I'm in there to kind of be a mulliker and kind of basically let Adam do the other stuff, but he obviously proved that he was a bit more than a mulliker last Saturday evening.
Yeah, and when you go back over it, Screeney got, is that right, 1 from play. It was an unbelievable point. We got 1 from play, and obviously the 8 frees were brilliant, the 365s, they have to be put over. But isn't it funny, because he's been so touted for so long, and he is so exciting to watch, when he gets a point, and his point was quite good, the one where he stepped one way and then stepped the other and fired it over off the sideline. It's not even in his top 10 scores this year or anywhere close to it. And generally, Tip did not too bad, tried to hold him out a little bit. and yet the story is totally Adam Screeney. So I want to sort of totally like say that the hype that we've seen around him is brilliant and justified, yet Tip did quite well on him. And a lot of the other forwards, you know, probably took up the mantle in terms of scoring. And you've mentioned Barry Egan there. Dan Burke, what a finish for his goal. Thought that was brilliant. Like you've so many good players there. And I think everyone is just looking at it, you know, from outside Offaly and probably inside. Can you get them through? Because they are so small. Now, that doesn't mean they're not hardy. But by God, they're so small. When you contrast them with like Limerick, how long is it going to take to get them through? It could be another 4 years before physically they're ready for some of the stronger teams.
Yeah, there's a couple of points there. I just mentioned Screeney at the start. Had that goal went in, it would have been one of the great goals. Like, what an outrageous save from Horgan. Hurled fully outstretched, ball going like an inch inside the post. It was absolutely amazing save. Now, you said it was a good point. It was a lethal point he got. Now,
no, I mean, like in the
by his standards.
Yeah.
I think from an Offaly point of view as well, there are so many things to get excited about, but the fact that there are maybe 3 or 4 potentially like marquee forwards, like Dan Burke has delivered. Egan even came in with 1-2. Shane Rigby didn't score the last day, but he was brilliant. He was a real outlet under puckouts. He caught a couple of deadly puckouts. And then even Conor Doyle as well, who was probably just only coming back to himself, having been injured for a while. That's really kind of heartening point of view. Just on the S&C side of things, like I know for a fact that they're all doing what they should be doing. I just think, by all accounts, maybe genetically, with 4 or 5 of them in particular, it's just going to take a little bit longer, and that's okay. Because and I know people would say some of what Cyril said last Thursday was very old school, but some of what he said makes sense as well, in the sense of you can't overload a lad physically too. I'd be much more happy for Adam Screeney to be where he needs to be in 5 years' time rather than next year or the year after. Do you know what I mean? And there's a natural, you know, lads naturally fill out usually in their early 20s as well. So some of that, part of that will fill into it as well, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And by all accounts, it's not as if some people are like, oh, the difference in S&C between Tipperary and Offaly. Yeah, as in the size wise, but who was still going as hard as they were in the final second as they were in the first second. So you can't say that they're not doing their S&C. They definitely are. It just looks like for them to mature to be, really good polished senior hurlers, it looks like it might take a little bit longer. But again, Screeney's only 19, do you know what I mean? We normally would have been talking about lads making the step from 21 to senior. Now it's obviously a bigger step from 20 to senior. But I'd be pretty happy that there's a fairly long-term vision in sight with all of those guys.
Yeah. Aaron the Mush says, Screeney has scored a couple of points this year that were as good as anything I've ever seen in the flesh. But Barry Egan's tops them all. Team effort, champagne, hurling. And Adrian McGrath also adds, Offaly don't need to be better than Limerick in 2024. They need to be better than Laois in 2024. By the time they're ready to compete, Limerick's big players will be gone. I mean, that's, of course, a good point too, but I don't think it lessens the necessity to physically get up to the level to be able to compete with teams that are going to be challenging, that are operating at Liam McCarthy level. And I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying it's the thing that you're looking at. The most glaring thing is, yes, these lads are brilliantly skillful. You know they're going to be class. It's just such a big job to ensure that they get there physically. And that's not to question what they're doing. I'm not at all. It's just I want that team to go on to senior level and have big games against whoever. Obviously, Tip are gone for the next 10 years, according to you and everyone else. No, but I just want to see that team kick on. And we're going to talk later in the week about the Joe McDonagh Cup final coming against Laois. How many more people do you think from Offaly are going to travel for that game now that you've got the momentum of the under-20 win behind you?
Well, there'd be a lot of people. There'd be a lot of people that would be sitting at a bar stool for most of the week and will put that on hold for next Saturday night and then maybe start it up again for another couple of days after. No, we'll definitely swell the crowd a bit, and we'll definitely do no harm anyway. There was a right good crowd travel last year for the Carlow final, and because there's going to be a handful of those guys involved as well. 3 or 4 will definitely feature, maybe 5. I'd imagine that would swell the crowd even more. And just plus there's the whole kind of feel-good factor, and there's the possibility of, getting back up into the All-Ireland series again, or getting back into Leinster again for 2025. So it's 2 huge games within, a space of 7 days. the first hurdle has been jumped. It's going to be really difficult, and we go into all the matchups and various things in Thursday's show. But that's going to be a belter of a game as well. Again, like I was chatting to just about it being played in Croke Park, and it's, in one respect it's great, and I know the players love to play in Croke Park. But I was chatting to Milan, was doing commentary for RTE Radio, and he just said, I've never witnessed a better atmosphere in person. Because and he's played in some of the games that have had the greatest atmosphere, and he's commentated on some of them as well. Like, that is just what a provincial ground offers, isn't it? It's standing room only. Everyone's like pretty much in on top of each other. You can hear it's just bubbling all around the place, and even like there was traffic jams along the way, Ballacalla, place like that, like from 2 o'clock. The game was thrown in at 7:15. O'Loughlin's was absolutely hopping. I don't know if Aidan Fogarty, who's obviously a great Offaly son, down in O'Loughlin's now. I don't know if it was Offaly only, but it seemed to be Offaly only in O'Loughlin's from what I could see anyway. But no, it was fantastic, and it will definitely feed into on Saturday night as well, without a doubt.
Yeah, Colin Lyons blind spot. Shane, do you think if Kyle Hayes or Hego pulled that stroke the tip wing back did, you would have mentioned it by now? Filthy. Well, yeah, of course. Like, that was a red card. I've no problem with that at all. It's actually funny how often people say to me, how come you never say this about Tip? When the reality is I have almost constantly mentioned red card for Tip any time that there should or perhaps could have been one. Like, why do people somehow think that I only judge other counties? Find me someone who's harder on Tip than I am, and I try to be fair when I am.
It's funny, like, I've completely forgotten about that incident, and I'm from the county that was sinned against. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have brought it up if a viewer hadn't brought it up. It wouldn't even come to my mind. And you're probably something similar. There's so many other things happened. But we definitely, I think we're quite fair with anything that happens against any county, and like. Sure, like I've probably called out Offaly's foolish red cards as much as anybody over the years, and various bits and pieces. So I think actually, funny enough, I think we're nearly harder on our own counties than other counties. But there's definitely a Limerick thing there where people seem to think that we don't call things out on, or people think that we're very hard on Limerick. I think it's only natural that there will be more Limerick talking points and incidents because they have played more games than anybody in the last 4 or 5 years. So there are going to be more incidents.
And probably because teams have to get up for it more against Limerick, probably playing closer to the edge. Cuckoo says, Sean Stack must have Tip blood in him. Thought he was giving Tip all the calls and I'm a neutral. I would have thought the other way. And look, I'm not necessarily saying Sean Stack went one way or the other massively. But I will say that when there's a crowd, and look, it was mostly Offaly, but I do feel, and you're very good at doing this, your under 20 team, and I'm not slating, like I love that team. But go into any bit of contact and your arms are going up in the air looking for the freeze. And because you've such a big crowd there, I can almost understand how a ref would give it. But I did feel you got plenty of soft ones, and I know you can balance it out and say 1 or 2 we got, but you definitely get a load of soft ones from the arms going up and the crowd roaring.
Probably a small bit. I actually mentioned. Now, I didn't necessarily mean that talking about the Leinster final, but I thought Offaly were very smart against the Breeze in that they bought freeze and killed time. And I think good players and good teams will do that. It was we weren't necessarily trying to buy them for those reasons in the final. But lads are I think there's a couple of lads in particular are very cute. Now, I was disappointed that Stack didn't see Screeney touching the ball for the line ball, because that would have been a lovely score. He just ever so slightly touched the ball, and I think it was Colin Spain burst it on. And I don't know if Stack saw it or he didn't, but they took the line ball again. It nearly ended up in the net. But it was Jamie Barron-esque. Wasn't
there another one that ye blatantly, another one that was blatantly for us that ye got? I mean, yeah.
Oh, there could have been. Listen, it's all kind of really irrelevant now, but yeah, like it was just phenomenal. I don't know. My appearance probably suggested I've just been on a cloud for the last 72 hours or so. It's been absolutely brilliant. As I tweeted there the other night, I was very reluctant to go to bed for fear that I wake up and it wasn't all reality, but it is. And it's hard to overstate, you know. And I'd say you've gotten the vibe from me since that team came on the scene in 2022. Everyone has just bought into that team. There's a great belief in that team. But they play a beautiful kind of silky hurling, but they're dogs to work as well, and everybody's just gotten in behind them. And I think that's what I think that's what people believe again and can see hope again and can think, oh, in 4 or 5 years' time, we could be outrageously competitive in Leinster, potentially. And then up in Smartage, and I'd have to, like, we've had them on different shows down through the years, like, Dignan was the glue that pulled the whole thing together as well. And there's no point in saying any different because we were in rag order before he took over.
I wonder, do the people who were ever over Offaly administration ever look at it and how long they clung on for? And, you know, a lot of them, there was plenty of media done about the job they were doing. I wonder, did they ever look at it now and think, yeah, maybe I should have left a little bit earlier and the wheel could have turned quicker?
Well, I've always said about, you know, I've seen it in clubs around the country. There are certain people that would rather be steering a sinking ship than watching on from the shores as the ship sails smoothly. I've seen that in my own club, and I've seen that probably in Offaly as well. But by God, the ship is sailing fairly smoothly now. And just, we had no identity. I know you would have been hammering Offaly and hammering me down through the years, but you actually don't take any joy in that. Like, I don't take any joy in Tip. I actually don't take any joy in Tip being beaten because I want to see them competitive. You want to see Offaly in or around the top table. You want to see another team being competitive, and that's the way it is. And hopefully in 4 or 5 years at senior level, that when those lads are 23, 24, and Ben Keneally will still be there, and Killian Sampson and these boys, and Ross Ravenhill and Kieran Burke and many more that are on the senior team and have been there, Owen Catlin, a few more, Killian Kiley, they'll all hopefully still be there as well. And there could be a nice little potent mix with a lot of those young guys matured by that stage.
Is there a good age profile on them? I feel a lot of them about 26, 27. I remember Ben Keneally, though. He played in Leinster against Galway. Was that around 2018? 18, yeah. So he's excellent player, around a long time. Like, so what's the age profile like?
Yeah, Ben's not 30 yet, I don't think. I put it this way, I think I taught him as a second year in Banner College in 2011. So whatever that is, I'd say it's about 26, 27.
Wouldn't it be great to see those lads being able to stay on and be still at their peak, you know, in time for some of these lads to come through so that you could establish yourselves in Leinster?
Yeah, because with due respect, and a lot of those young fellas won't be rookies, but you need you need seasoned senior hurlers along with them. And we could have a lot of lads that will have played Christy Ring, McDonough, and hopefully a couple of years of Leinster Championship by then. You know, and that's a lot of experience to be bringing to the table. So hopefully, here's hoping anyway. But they have us all believing again anyway.
Yeah, well, there's a topic I want to get onto in a little while, but just this to do with like coverage and stuff like that. But there's one thing I wanted to throw at you. Adam Screeney, because he's playing in the Joe McDonough Cup, can he get nominated for Young Hurler of the Year? Like, I look at the Young Hurler of the Years last year, and the nominees were Adam Hogan, Mark Rogers, and Kieran Joyce. And because there's a separate Joe McDonough Player of the Year, I'm just wondering, can Screeney? I actually am not sure.
I don't think so. It's never. I don't think it's ever really been a live possibility before. But Dan Burke would come into the mix big time as well because he started all the senior games and obviously he's under 20 exploits. But I don't think that's a runner at the minute. They're basically, once they brought in the separate award system, there's a hurler of the year within the McDonough Cup, but there's no young hurler of the year. So I think they fall into that bracket. Barn, like, we go and win a couple of games or something like that in the senior championship, then maybe you can come into the mix. But we won't lose the run of ourselves too much now.
Are the Offaly lads still going on about that children's match? Well, that's Conor Heaney. But you know what? I'm going to go on about an even younger game from the weekend. Now, look, I watched I was on a stag now, but you know, I watched a lot of different games over the weekend, and one was the Celtic Challenge final between Kilkenny and Tipperary Blue. Now, Tip entered two teams. Both of them got to the semi-final. Tipperary Blue got to the final, and they lost by 4 points to Kilkenny. But I have to say, I was, you know, I mean, I'm not that emotionally invested in watching, you know, really, you know, their boys playing or whatever. So, like, you're watching and you're trying to see, is there anyone coming or whatever. But, like, it was just the softest red card I've ever seen given at the start of the second half. A second yellow card, and I was like, come on, this is kids playing. We're at Nolan Park. We're in the Celtic Challenge final. Can we just, you know, move on and not give a red card? And I don't know exactly what made the referee decide that I have to go this harsh, but it kind of, like, Kilkenny started quite well. Tip came back into it. Tip were very close then coming up to half time. the old thing that I often give out about Tipperary and sideline cuts. Tipperary mishit a sideline cut, then pulled it more or less straight to a Kilkenny lad, concede a goal. I mean, and it's kids and whatever, these things happen. But for that red card to happen at the start of the second half in a Celtic Challenge final, when something very minimal has happened, I don't think you would have seen this now, but it's just so frustrating.
I'd be unbelievably reluctant to send off any young fella in any match, barring it's like a blatant red card.
I'd love to know what people think now, if anyone else saw it.
Particularly in a kind of high profile game like this. Like I think in this scenario as well, like it's a yellow card, and maybe like I think it's a yellow card, and you tell your management team to take him off in this regard. Do you know what I mean? Because it's I don't think it's a nice thing for a young fella to be, not that he's going to be the scapegoat or anything like that, but to be his team is reduced to 14 and putting a lot of pressure and whatever on his shoulders, that he's the cause of them losing the match or anything like that, when by all accounts it seems like something fairly minimal that happened, and shall we say a strange refereeing call that has cost Tipperary blue in that regard.
Yeah, and it's not even the result. Again, it's very young, underage, but it's great if they keep winning and all that kind of stuff. And maybe there was something that I didn't see that happened, but it seemed minimal to me anyway. But you know what I was also thinking about? The way people would be criticising the fact that we didn't get to see Cork against Donegal over the weekend, and that was a really good game, and obviously Cork won and that kind of thing. And I was thinking then, like, how much of this is down to, like, in GAA, there's only a certain amount of games that we're ever going to be able to show. Well, maybe you could get onto different streaming services and show everything and have a sort of a central place where they're all shown and different people who broadcast and stream get paid from the pot, whatever. Anyway, but that aside for now. Is it because there's only so many games being shown in GAA compared with like soccer? It's ubiquitous coverage. You cannot, obviously now it's off season, but generally you cannot turn on the TV without a soccer match going on somewhere. And it goes straight from like international season to club season. And, we've got the Euros coming up and all that kind of stuff. So if there's a bad match on telly, we very quickly move on to the next one. Whereas in the GAA, we don't show all the games. You can't go and illegally stream some game that isn't on TV like you could. I mean, I wouldn't, but like you could with Premier League soccer or whatever. Everyone just streams their own team if they want. And I'm just thinking that we have games at the weekend, a certain amount of games. We might miss a good one and be stuck with some of the dross that we got on TV over the weekend, like Kerry against Meath, for example, and a mismatch between Derry and Armagh. And then we have to wait 5 days before something comes on the TV again. Whereas like with football, right? Look at the 3 European soccer finals this year, without going into depth on them. The European Conference League final, which was won by, who won it?
Atalanta, was it? Or which was...
No, they won the Europa League final. It was was it Olympiacos or somebody like that? I'm sure someone will comment there. They were dreadful games. I was at the Atalanta beating Leverkusen 3-0. Brilliant spectacle down there. Fireworks, the whole lot, and the 2 fans were unbelievable. Olympiacos here, says Conor Heaney and Cuckoo. But like, the Conference League final was horrendous. The Champions League final was unbelievably bad. And this was on at the same time as the under-20. So is it the fact that there's ubiquitous coverage of soccer that you can very quickly, your mind resets and moves on from that terrible game you just saw the last day? Because 3 days later, you've United again, and then Liverpool the next day, and then Arsenal and City, whatever. Whereas in GAA, we don't. We might cherry pick the wrong games at the weekend, and then you have to wait a full week for good stuff. And if you're not into the minors and under-20s and all those matches, I mean, this is all part of the problem.
Yeah, well, God bless TG Carter, because there's usually a solution during the week, or there has been for the last couple of weeks. But like, I agree with you to a point, Shane, but how, like, and not being smart, how do you not put Loud and Monaghan on TV or on GAAGO? Like, that's going to be a competitive game. Like, on the flip of that, right, just take this bare form, and I'm always at the form with racing. So Meath lost by 10 points to Loud, and Monaghan were beaten out the gate by Kerry. So how do you put Kerry and Meath on TV? In all honesty, it was
unless it's selected beforehand, because they're like, we need to get a certain amount. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying, if this is all pre-organised.
I tell you something, Shane. If they need to get a certain amount of Kerry on TV, well, then God help Cork, because the Cork can't seem to get games broadcast. Some of them can't even be broadcast, let alone be on television. I'm delighted you brought that up, because I got a message from Barry John on Patreon, and I just read this out. It's a little bit
it's a bit long, but it's worth reading through. And he goes, when people slate GAA and the games we don't see, can we also reflect on, he says, how you saying GAA blows? Firstly, from the outset, I'm a fan of GAAGO, or maybe I'm a fan of the idea of it. I appreciate that GAAGO offers matches to be viewed that ordinarily would get 5 to 7 minutes of highlights on the Sunday game. However, I feel that many counties can feel a little aggrieved at the paywalling of their inter-county team, but no county more than the biggest GAA county in the country, Cork. I also appreciate that Cork are not the biggest in terms of success, but they do have the most clubs of any county and hence supply a major proportion of GAA members. The popularity of GAA in this county has been rewarded with 4 out of 5 Munster games being paywalled, and then adding insult to injury, the Cork v Donegal game was not even put on GAAGO. When I turn on RT, rugby was saturating the coverage and has been the sport of choice of recent years. GAA is not doing itself any favours by punishing Cork like this. I can tell you with a lot of confidence that attendances are down in the stands of Cork and juvenile games. If a choice needed to be made, and juvenile players, if a choice needed to be made, are picking rugby and soccer, and the GAA are hemorrhaging young talent to rival sports that are now the sports of choice for our national broadcaster. The Cork-Donegal game marked the 5th game out of 6 that was not free to air. In brackets, this game wasn't even deemed worthy to show at all. The GAA or RTE decided to show a pitiful Kerry versus Meath game instead, a result which, based on form, was such an obvious one, and it's hardly an advertisement to young boys and girls up and down the country of a vibrant, thriving game. It's baffling to us Cork GAA supporters and Donegal supporters didn't have the option to view the game. It wasn't clashing with any other game. Again, I really am a fan of GAAGO, but I feel it's been mismanaged and is highly disrespectful to supporters and members who give up 3 or 4 hours a week of their time. The GAA is sinking, and in fact, I'd even say they're blowing a hole in their own ship. A very frustrated Cork man. # the double is on.
Yeah, like it's very hard to agree with what he says or disagree with what he says. Like even Shano, like we've made the case for why Kerry and Meath shouldn't be on telly. There was a quite captivating case to make why Donegal and Cork should be. You've Donegal play with Jim McGuinness and everything that comes with that, playing great stuff, and Cork, represent themselves very well against Kerry and are back motoring pretty well again. There was a possibility that this would be very interesting. And even the fact it was in Parky Arena as well added another layer to it for me or whatever. And even just to see, like, and maybe it's obviously hindsight now, but like, sure, that was probably the second biggest pitch invasion of the weekend. Do you know what I mean? After the game. Sure, I know games there's a bit of a scheduling thing or whatever, but surely every week you take stock and look at what the biggest and best is of this weekend, and you try and make sure that's shown. I have no issue with some games not being shown. That's just the nature of it. It's not possible. But I do have issue with, like, we should be putting the odds in our favour of having really good games on telly that will captivate people. Not two teams going around wearing what looked like identical jerseys. Like, it just was bizarre stuff with Kerry and Meath. Just the whole thing around it, picking that game, even the attire that both teams wore, the whole thing was just very, very strange.
And you just wonder, like, if Virgin and RTE can do a deal to show all the URC games, which, I mean, look, every friend group is different, but I don't know anybody. Like, I don't have any friends who are interested in that at all. In fact, they actively hate rugby. But, like, could something not be done around GAA? But look, maybe they feel that the market isn't there. To be fair, Adrian McGrath says, Shane, have you checked the statement about hemorrhaging young players to soccer and rugby? I'm not seeing that, and I don't believe it's true, but reading it means you are endorsing that. Are you? No, I'm reading out someone's opinion. I said this was Barry John sending in a message on Patreon. I don't have to back every comment I read out. I'm just reading out what he says, and you send in the comments, and I'm happy to read them out too.
Yeah, listen, I that's his point of view, obviously, but there is a point to be made of, if there's that much rugby and that much soccer on television, and probably that little GAA, shall we say, at the minute, it's definitely not helping.
Yeah, and the referees have been named for the big games coming this weekend. So Colin MacDonald from Antrim, he's going to do the Joe McDonough final on Saturday between Laois and Offaly. Thomas Walsh from Waterford, he's going to do Kilkenny versus Dublin Saturday at Croke Park, which will be after that McDonough final. And then Colm Lyons, he'll do the Limerick versus Clare game. So any issues with any, like, I don't fixate on referees too much before games. I mean, we all get frustrated after them, but I wouldn't get overly fixated with this.
No, Colin Lyons has had a good few of them games in recent times. I wouldn't be. No, I wouldn't. There maybe are certain names that you would see that would prick your ears up a small bit or realise that rules are going to be enforced a bit more. But I wouldn't have any great problem going into this weekend. We'll get into that maybe a bit more Thursday about how games will be maybe refereed or what effect officials might have on them, though.
Yeah, Tomas says David Clifford was the reason why Kerry were on TV. Easier sell to make to the audience. Bron O'Brien on says, as somebody that adores both GAA and rugby, if Shane doesn't have any friends that like rugby and actively hate rugby, he must have a very small friend list. Maybe that's true, but that is certainly the way it is. Colm Lyons blind spot. I was wondering if you'd comment. I do think Colm Lyons struggles the most with Clare's full backline holding. Will definitely suit Clare more. So I'm just going to go through some of the other results from the weekend. Verney will be back there shortly. In the Christy Ring final, Derry 122, Kildare 421. So that's Kildare securing a record 5th Christy Ring Cup and their 4th title in 7 years. In terms of the scoring done on the Kildare side, Jack Sheridan hit 1-9, a goal from the penalty spot, and 8 frees. James Burke hit 1-2, David Qualter 1-1, and Maurice Curtin, he scored the other goal. Plenty of other players popped in with points also. On the Derry side, Cormac O'Doherty, he hit 1-11, 1-9 of those from place balls. Jack Mullen with 6 from play. It was particularly impressive. Nicky Rackard final, Donegal 317, Mayo 22 points. So that's Donegal winning a record extending 4th Nicky Rackard Cup. Brilliant second half there, seeing off a brave challenge from Mayo. And Josh Cronley McGee, he hit 2 goals when he came off the bench. And the Laurie Maher final then finished Fermanagh 322, Longford 220. 3rd Laurie Maher title for Fermanagh, and 2-2 from Brian Teahan of Moneygall. Did you see one of those goals that he scored? By God.
Like a lovely ball played across and he just doubled on it straight to the net. It's not something, like it's probably not something that Naz and Lee McCarthy would even try, and you might be given out to, because it's kind of nearly kind of low percentage chance of it actually going in or making contact to it. But that was a sweet one. Now, good to see there was another bit of an Offaly influence on another All-Ireland that was won this weekend also.
Oh, I'm not sure if everyone in Moneygall would appreciate you saying that.
Geographically, she's in Offaly anyway.
It depends on which part of the parish you're talking about. The pitch is in Tipperary.
Well, Teahan is a real Offaly name too, to be fair.
Yeah, but you never know. What about the...
We can get Brian on to clear it up sometime if he wants. No problem whatsoever.
Dr. Brian, I believe.
Dr. Brian, that's right, yeah.
There's not that I'm aware of, I don't think there's any media launch ahead of the 3 finals that we've just talked about that are coming this weekend, is there?
There was the McDonough, there was 2 players, I think Aaron Dunphy and Killian Kiley were up for interview at the Ring Rackard Mar final launch last week. Okay. So that was quite smart, to be fair. But to the best of my knowledge, like, it's the Tuesday before the Leinster final on Saturday and the Tuesday before the Munster final on Sunday. So I don't see there being anything. And that's it's a pure own goal, Shane. There's no point in saying any different. Like, we'll find our way around it, and we'll chat to a former player or, you know, someone not gone long out of setup or a former coach or something like that. But you should be handing people, you know, interesting players that, like, the thing that annoys me is, say we're given a Limerick and Clare player put up for interview this week. Are we going to ask about the match that much? No, we're not going to ask who are you going to be marking. Are you going to play a sweeper? That's not. You want to know more about the players involved. You want to know more about the players under the helmets, really. And that's why, like, we've had Shane O'Donnell on here for about half an hour. I'd say we barely mentioned the match. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so much interesting stuff, and you learn more about him and what makes him take off the pitch. Same was with David Reedy, and same with other lads as well. And I don't think we're doing ourselves much of a service in that regard.
Yeah, and like, I know it can be a tough one in terms of like amateur players and all that kind of stuff, but like, if the GPA want to keep pushing for this, that, and the other, I mean, surely they should set it up that for every game that there is a media call once per week, which is basically like, here's a Zoom link, click in there at 12:30 and we'll chat for 15 minutes. And, you know, that's it. It's very easily done. That means we can promote the game much more easily heading into the weekend. It's not like you don't have to ask every player, will you come up for a launch that'll take half a day, take a half day off work. You just cycle it around, and it just means that there's more coverage for the games, which the games need, because you look at every other sport, as I say, ubiquitous coverage. So again,
ubiquitous. Is that like word of the day toilet paper or something? Is it?
It is, yeah. So I see a few people commenting here. It was Umbridge last week that Liam Cahill came out with, and now I'm coming out with ubiquitous this week. It's a couple of people are question. Sorry, go ahead.
But just on that kind of the media call, like I think one of the very, very, very few positives that came out of COVID, one was streaming services, and another was, okay, players can just jump on a Zoom link. They don't need to come up to Crow Park or whatever. Get a few pictures taken somewhere close to home, and they can jump on a Zoom link, and it's not an inconvenience. And that happens more and more now. You still jump on a Zoom call. Saves them time, saves them hardship. And to be honest with you, it probably saves us hardship as well. A lot of the time, it's a bit of a time saver. But like some counties, I have to say, are very, very good. Like the Sligo football in particular, like if they have a game coming up, you talk to their PRO, they will even send you information. They will even send you bits about different players and will say X, Y, and Z are available for interview if you want to interview them. And that's brilliant. I remember that before a big game in Connacht last year. I was chatting to Pat Spillane Jr. I think there might have been something for the Tailteann Cup as well. Like that's good. Like, and that's why I would praise what Offaly did with the under-20s as well. Like people, I put it to you this way. A lot of people, casual hurling supporters, would know more of the Offaly under-20s than the Offaly seniors, and would know what they look like. And that's partly to do with because the Offaly 20s are televised so much, but it's also partly to do with, sure, how are you going to see a lot of those Offaly seniors? Do you know what I mean? And I know people would say, oh, another boring player interview in the paper or something like that, or online. Generally, if you take it off in a different stance, you will get interesting stuff, our lads. And that's the only way. A lot of the time now, it's the only way we will find out what makes these guys tick. And I just think it's a bit of an own goal, particularly I would say, Shane, from a Dublin point of view. So this is for Kilkenny, Clare, and Limerick. It's got quite commonplace to be in a provincial final. Dublin were there 3 years ago. It was 8 years before then. It was it 1991 before the previous Leinster final? To me, like, they should be really hamming this up.
Okay, so there's some comments here about the Munster final and the referee. And Colm Lyon's blind spot, not the referee, but the commenter, the username here. Clare 94 to win. Scandalous odds considering Limerick will be missing Finn, Casey, O'Donovan and Flanagan. Free money. Well, we'll see who's actually available.
Tell you a good one, Shane. Actually, speaking of free money, I wouldn't do too much betting these days, but put together just a little treble the other day. It was the Derby winner. It was Offaly to lift the cup, and it was Real to beat Dortmund, and both teams to score. And the disallowed goal, Shane. Oh my God. Oh my God.
He was outside though.
I was counting it. It was. Really back. It was the only way the weekend could have got better. But it didn't knock a funk out of me now, to be honest with you, given what had happened just a few minutes before then. But I couldn't believe it. Because it was 0-0 up to what? Mid-70 minutes, something like that. And you're thinking there might be any goals. Then all of a sudden they all start flooding in. By all accounts, Leverkusen missed a heap of chances in the first half. Dortmund. Yeah, that was a hard one to take now.
Sports Opinion says, I'd love to see a free-flowing Munster final like 2022, but Colm Lyons, it's going to be a game full of controversy and who has the better free taker. Ida McGrath says, Colm Lyons has no time for Galan holding his opponent and then screaming blue murder when he doesn't get penalties for him pulling and dragging. The Limerick lads go mental over it. Very funny. And Sports Opinion says, it's known to the officials Cleary holds the full forward every game. Should be warned about it before the game. And if he does, give it to him yellow straight away.
Hold on a second now. You can't just give him a yellow card straight away just because he's known for doing it. Like, that's not how it works. You can't, like, I've seen this before with counties, within club championships. I would have been known for fouling. So, and I thought it was rubbish, to be honest with you. But if I pulled the lad, I would get a yellow rather than getting a tick that anyone else on the field will get it. And there's no way, just because he pulls a fella, just because it's Conor Cleary, does not mean he should get a yellow straight away. And you can't warn someone beforehand. You can tell the two captains at the throw-in, one of them it just happens to be Conor Cleary that we're going to pull, like we're going to be sticklers for this, and this, and he can relay it back to the team. But no, you cannot anything anyone has done in a previous game is disregarded going into a new game. So I don't disagree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all, I should say.
Hey, did you have tears the other day after the final whistle when Offaly beat Tip?
I'd be straight with you, Shano. I bawled, and that's been honest now, yeah. And I'm not. There's very few things that would make me do that, but hurling seems to definitely be one. No, I did, yeah. Be straight with you, yeah. Couple of times actually, couple of separate occasions, not just one goal. Not just one goal. That's why when TG Carter about that little video montage last night, like I thought all the emotion was out of me after the weekend, but they managed to stir up another bit.
Christ almighty. And like, who were you watching with?
Oh, I watched him with a few of the boys and stuff, yeah, of course, like, and lads that would mean a hell of a lot to as well, like, so.
Were they the same?
Yeah, not far off, yeah. Not quite on my level, I'd say, to be honest with you.
Was it in a pub or someone's house?
No, it was in a pub because I was away for the weekend as well. So
you were on a stag as well,
yeah,
weren't you?
I had to. It was one of my best buddies. I came to peace with the fact that the match was going to be on during the stag straight away because it was one of my good buddies. So we actually had a laptop out quietly enough in the pub, a busy enough pub, and nobody really noticed. TG Carter was able to be shown. It was in Newcastle actually, and TG Carter we were able to get it up somehow. I don't know how. And it was brilliant, and yeah, we lost the run of ourselves completely.
Christ almighty, can you imagine trying to explain that to the people in Newcastle?
Yeah, no, I got some funny looks like about what type of jersey I was wearing or whatever after, and it just kept going, oofa, yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, like there's can't remember the name of the guy, but Offaly GAAGO put out that sort of behind the scenes, or there's
Mark Ford. It's amazing stuff.
Again, just shows you, like, having an old camera here or there, like, what difference does it make? Bit of access, great memories for everybody, you know.
As well as that, you know, like I think he did one after Kilkenny game. That obviously sums up the Kilkenny game, but hypes up the next game. He did one after the Dublin game, sums up that game, but hypes up the next game. Like, it just, to me, it's all hype, and another word for hype is publicity and promotion, really, and that's what it's doing. Like, I can't imagine. Like I was chatting to one of my buddies who's a GDA he's a GDA between Burr and Kilcormac, and he just said he asked for lads to go in goals after the Leinster final, and everyone wanted to go in goals because Liam Hoare had been unreal. Do you know what I mean? That's the influence. And then he said there was like nearly all the lads were trying to hurl left-handed because of some of the scores the screen he got. Like that's the influence that all this kind of stuff has.
Yeah, and you know, like we did a big show with O'Neill's there on Thursday, and I was showing my brothers, you know, coach with the Tip 20s, this image that I'd done. I had it up on the Patreon, just all the players that had played in the 2022 minor final that were going on to play in the under-20 final then as well. And same sort of thing as you were saying there about that video that Offaly had. He just called me a hype merchant for it.
Yeah, see, it's different when you're involved in the setup. You're trying to not necessarily dilute it, but they are young fellas. You're just trying to make sure that they don't lose the run of themselves or get caught in the hype, because I'm sure it's very easy to. But
no, he wasn't saying it in a bad way. He was just saying.
But to me, it is all about promoting the games. It is all about making them as visible as possible and making players as visible as possible. Because at the end of the day, the players that go through the white lines or go between the white lines, they are the heroes and inspirations for all people. And I have a bit of an issue with, like, managers shouldn't have to do all the work, if you get me, publicity wise. And sometimes it's an easy one for, at least fairness, at least if a manager does go up for interview, they're making themselves available. But you do want to hear more from, you know, the 30 lads that go between the white lines and basically will win or lose the game.
Yeah. I just see a comment there. 4 from Clara on the Offaly panel. Is Clara going to be the new hurling stronghold in Offaly? And I'm just going to ask you, across the board, we know Kilcormac Cloughy are going to be very strong, a lot of key players there, but is there a decent spread or a few clubs that wouldn't necessarily have historically been represented?
Yeah, Dan Burker's from Durrow, and Durrow's amalgamated with Ballinamer. So, like, and I think there could be 6 or 7 from Durrow on the Offaly senior hurling panel now, including Dan and Ross Ravenhill, Dan Burke, Sam Burke, Kieran Burke, yeah, Brian Daigan obviously as well. Like that's a good representation there. The sub-keeper is Claudia Gales. Again, what would be seen as an outpost maybe of hurling within Offaly. Clara has 4, as our viewer says there. Burr had 2. Belmont had 1, I think. There's obviously Kilcormac would have dominated, but Carrigan Riverstown had 2 on the team, 3 on the panel, definitely 3 on the panel at the match day squad anyway. There's a nice bit of variety there, pulling from lots of different places. Killian Martin's there from Tullamore. There's a hell of a lot of teams represented now, which is that's what you need. Offaly's a small enough county. You can't just, you used to always say within an 8-mile radius of Burr, like that was what the bulk of the squad was. Like you need more than that, realistically, particularly nowadays. And we're pulling from a nice variety of clubs now, to be fair.
Yeah, I remember chatting to Nicky Brennan at, maybe we were at Parnell Park watching a Dublin-Kilkenny game a few years ago, and he was sort of going through the Kilkenny panel with me, and he was talking about how many were from junior clubs. And this was probably an underage game, actually, or the conversation came up and he was talking about the amount that were from smaller clubs, not traditionally powerhouses. And I was looking at the tip panels for the under-20 and minor this year. And maybe it's just in my head where I'd always think, there'd be a load of players from the north or whatever. But I think for the under-20s there in the final the other day, Paddy McCormick was injured or whatever. I think there was only 5 out of the 26. Now, maybe I'm out by 1 or 2 there from the north. And I thought that's a bit different. I think even for the minors as well, it might be small compared to what traditionally it might be. And it's important, I would imagine, that, counties need to maximise everything they have, because you just never know where a star is going to come from. Which why, back to the Celtic Challenge, I think it's great that Tip were able to enter 2 teams and both were able to get quite far.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. You just need to be pulling more lads from different places. Like I remember in '98, like John Ryan came in for Offaly near the end of the All Ireland final, like from Shannon Bridge. Like he played his football, he played his hurling with Rhinos, but like someone from Shannon Bridge playing for Offaly. Like Donald Shirley is wing back from Tubber. Like Tubber have never had, I would hazard a guess and say they've never had representation on any Offaly underage hurling teams before, or very, very little, very, very little. He's definitely the first to be playing senior hurling for Offaly. He's involved the senior squad. Adrian asked there about Burr. Yeah, Ben Miller, the fullback, is Burr, and Ailby Watkins is on the squad as well. I think he was replaced very, very late in the day by Dan Ravenhill, who they got back into the mix. I believe he played an internal game the week before. And he was rewarded for his efforts to get back by coming on. I suppose it was probably nearly a victory lap with a minute left, really. But I don't expect him to feature for the seniors that next weekend. He will go back into rehabilitation mode, I'd imagine.
When we were talking a little earlier about bringing players and teams onto the next level, and that it might take a few years for this Offaly team to, get up to where we want to in terms of like Leinster Championship and competing with some of the better teams, I was thinking a bit more about, for example, that Meath team at the moment, and Colin O'Rourke was talking about, well, we don't have a load of Con O'Callaghan's and David Cliffords and Sean O'Shea's and whoever else he might have named. And I was thinking, like, and I look at Tip and I'd say, right, athletically, do Tip need to come on a little bit more? And when did they start doing the stuff that's up to the level of the top teams, or are they? Because we don't know. We're on the outside looking in. You're sort of trusting that they're doing it right. And like, you often hear managers talking about needing time to develop players. And like, is GAA the one sport where we really should actually listen and give them that time? Because like in any professional sport, all teams prepare more or less the same athletically. So there shouldn't really be a physical advantage, which is why, you look at NFL and then a team can go from being a basement team to winning the Super Bowl within a couple of years, because it's not down to lagging S&C wise. It's like, we'll get a quarterback, we'll get a coach who knows what we're doing, add a couple of pieces, and now all of a sudden it clicks. Like, whereas in GAA, you could take over a team and it might take 5 years to get them lads in terms of preparation up to the level, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the S&C or a combination, and to get to a stage where you can challenge. Like, so it's easy for us from the outside to downplay it and say, look, you should have this and you should have those players up to that level and you should be able to compete with whoever. But like, whether it's me looking at Tip at the moment and wondering where we're coming up short, Meath with Colin O'Rourke, Offaly, we all know that there's going to need to be patience there. Do you think this is something that we don't really appreciate enough for some counties?
No, you probably don't. Like, I remember chatting to Carbro Carolon, who's the S&C with Limerick now, and he was the S&C with Tip from 19 to 21. and he had worked with the Limerick Academy before then. And he actually said, like, he couldn't get over how far behind Tipperary were. The lads that he was trying to bring through from minors, 20s into the senior were just miles off the basement foundations that he said, basically said, like most other counties will have, and definitely the likes of Limerick lads have coming in. So you think you're starting from this line in the middle that's splitting me and you, but you're actually starting from off over here, and you're scrambling to get back to this line in the middle and then be on parity with people and then kick on. But it can take a hell of a lot of time to get back to that line if you're behind the 8 ball before you start. So you don't know a lot of the time. That's why, like, I know people who have, as I said earlier, people who have some worries about S&C and Offaly. Like, I know the personnel that are there, and you have a fair idea of what's been done. So you'd have faith. In other counties, maybe not so much, and maybe it's a bit ad hoc depending on who's over the squad in this given year. Who's over the squad in 2024? Is it going to be a different S&C person in 2025 when they move on? Is it going to be a different person in 2026? Do you know what I mean? There generally needs to be continuity. You've been involved with teams where, like, lads have different approaches and they bring in their physical trainer / S&C coach, and this fella will do one thing and somebody else will come in and they'll do something completely different. And your body actually takes a long time to adapt to that. So I suppose it's all about having kind of a long-term kind of a plan. That's why I generally am much happy to see, let's say, the likes of Rob Mulcahy and Clare, who's looks like he's going to be there for the long haul and is kind of molding and cultivating everybody the whole way through, rather than different people coming and going and they're focused on one thing one year, another thing next year, and they're kind of getting lost a small bit along the way. That's why I'd be kind of happy with where Offaly are at the minute in that regard, and where they will be in 3 or 4 years' time.
Yeah, you look at some counties, the manager is involved in fundraising, is involved in, like, maybe organising who the S&C coach is, whereas other counties, that's all taken care of. You never have to have any concerns about it whatsoever. And I think it's just such an important thing. Like, we don't know what some inter-county managers are up against compared with others. And obviously, it doesn't really behoove them to go talk about it either, because people aren't necessarily going to understand. They're going to be like, bottom line, are you delivering or not? And that's kind of it, really. And there was
just one thing I will say about what I don't know. There's an honesty to O'Rourke, but I kind of wonder what his squad are thinking when they hear some of what he says, or has a conversation been had that, listen, I'm going to go out there and no, well, see, you know, sometimes a manager would take responsibility for a performance or a result. But when you go out and say that there's no Conor Callatons or no Shawnee O'Shea's, are you not degrading what the players that you're working with within your squad and the players that are going to be the future or whatever? So I'm not sure about that approach. Or I like his honesty in one respect, and then I'm kind of thinking, from a player's point of view, does he have much faith in me? Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I do. But you have to be a PR man as well. Like, people, I mean, I'll pick my own county as well. Like, people have, kind of put the microphone, I should say microscope on Liam Cahill, because after the Waterford game, he was, referring to maybe Derek McGrath, and then obviously took on the Tipperary journalist, after the last game. So you kind of have to be able to do the PR as well. SSRI says Meath at an all-time low in both hurling and football. But, like, if you took over the Dublin footballers, right, I think it would be really difficult to not be competitive in every single year, because it is a massive football county. Obviously, there's loads of hurling as well and other sports that take from their football pool. But you would have to say that with the number of players that are playing and the unbelievable strength of football at club level within the county, like, there is just a culture of S&C in so many clubs in Dublin, you wouldn't believe it. Like, and there's some clubs who have 150 plus teams now. That's between both codes, male and female. So I just wonder, like, how much of a disadvantage some counties are at when, you just don't have that S&C culture, and you can't compete unless your S&C is pretty good. Like, because it's not like you went 25 years without having hurlers there. Like, how much of it was down to athletically you were just a mile off in terms of preparation?
Yeah, no, that would have been a fair whack at that. And if you're not like close to being on par physically or strength and conditioning wise, like you are going to struggle. That's just the nature of it. And I've seen it. What you're talking about there, I've seen it firsthand with a few Dublin clubs, and even the mentality within club players to be like back training in November and December, like religiously doing programs or whatever. And it just seems to be a cultural kind of thing almost. And if that's a cultural thing at club level, obviously definitely that definitely feeds positively into county level as well.
Yeah, because like I remember being young, and obviously it's a different generation, but when
you remember being young, Jesus, that's not today or yesterday.
Yeah, but like you remember, you're like the whole culture around going back training. People are thinking, you're putting on the stone over winter, and you come back and run it off you. And then, I mean, I am talking like 10 or 12 years on, so it's probably changed everywhere. Not just this isn't just a country versus rural or urban area thing, but like the idea of waiting too long to go back would almost be weird to players, up in Dublin. I would have said, this is my experience of it, that you almost feel like you need to be tipping away at GA or gym or whatever to have yourself right for the next year.
Yeah, that's definitely happened the last couple of years. You just can't. You couldn't. Maybe it's because we're probably, in a sense, when you are a bit older, you're minding yourself a bit better as well, because you know what it takes to get back to the level that you were at this stage or whatever. But yeah, like I definitely don't think, I just from talking to lads and knowing lads and their lifestyle and habits, I definitely think lifestyle and habits have changed a hell of a lot. Yeah, lads have still got to enjoy themselves at the weekend, but they'll be doing their bit on the Sunday morning to offset that somewhat, and they'll be doing their bits during the week to make sure that they're in a decent spot whenever they do go back.
And then I just wanted to bring the comment on to another manager. So we talked about, Colin O'Rourke and so on and so forth, and managers that may have sort of look for excuses or have excuses. Maybe that's not exactly what he's after, but anyway, you get the point that I'm making. And we look at Mickey Harte, who's taken over a team that should be in their peak, and a team that, got so far last year, and you could argue were a team waiting to win an All-Ireland and didn't have injuries. I saw Cara O'Kane from the Irish News writing about this before, that basically for a couple of years there under Rory Gallagher, they had no injuries, and all of a sudden it feels like they've had loads of injuries. And then people talk about the Glen lads being back in league action too quickly, and they go and they target the league and they do great there, and then all of a sudden they're imploding. And then some of the words that Harte had at the weekend about the players, they're just not reaching the levels they did in the league, and particularly the league final. And it's very hard to explain what's happened. We can only look at it and see what our eyes are telling us, that we're getting bad beatings. And I just wonder, does that come across as more or less pointing the fingers at the players? And it is a difficult balancing act as a manager, because sometimes you're like, well, what we've worked on here, is it, are we carrying it out here? But at the same time, as a manager, you have to strike that balance of, look, we are all in it together and we accept the blame as well. So I think it's a tricky one for him. He doesn't have any of the excuses because his team are a peak team.
Yeah, it's a tough one. One of our viewers had the comment in there, like, if you start referring to your team, if you're not referring to them as we and you're referring to them as they, you're in trouble. Like, I remember that was kind of Bab's 1998. Like, they were like sheep in a heap. That's kind of what he said, and he was almost distancing himself from the performance. I don't think Mickey Harte is doing that. I'm sure he's very confused. Like, they're not trying to fail. They're not trying to underperform. He probably is scratching his head a bit. But like, it's so hard to put your finger on, even from an outsider looking in, at what exactly has gone wrong. Like, we had a fair debate at the time, I'd say, about Glass and the lads coming back and whether that was the right or wrong thing to do going forward. But once they'd won the league and were given a bit of a break during the league at different stages, you're kind of thinking, Jesus, Derry are absolutely humming here. Like, and they've got the belief of winning the national title, the belief of beating the Dubs, and then all of a sudden, like, how do you put your finger on it? Do you know what I mean?
What for 2022?
Yeah, I think Colin Parkinson mentioned that, or said it somewhere on Twitter, and I was just kind of thinking, yeah, like, maybe so. When you look at the amount of, I'm thinking of really, I'm thinking of the likes of Glass and the Glen lads, how much football they've played probably in the last even 6 months. 6 to 8 months has been a hell of a lot of football, and it's just hard to kind of stay going, hard to stay on that treadmill without taking a bit of a break. But there's sending offs now, there's injuries. Even tactically, you'd wonder, like, with the keeper, you just wonder how they haven't not abandoned the tactic, but modified it, at least, to make sure that they're not getting caught as they are. And I know we are focusing heavy on Derry, because Sure, it's the nature of sport in the GA. When teams are flying high, you will focus on them and you'll laud them. But when teams fall down that roller coaster or whatever, you'll focus on them even more because like why have the wheels come off? How have the wheels come off? Whose fault is this? And you start pointing at this and this. Yeah, you do have to give Armagh some credit. They play good football the other night, to be fair. And as I saw someone tweeting there yesterday, there probably is no blow that they can't come back from. Now, they've come back from so many different sucker punches down through the years. They haven't been able to get silverware or whatever, which is obviously hugely disappointing, particularly provincial silverware. But they have a fair bounce back ability, as Keane O'Neill said to us in college back in the day. They just keep coming back for more, in fairness, and they were very good the other night. Combined with the fact that Derry were very poor and at the minute look a beaten docket. But championship structures mean that they can lose 3 games and still be in the knockout stages, which is just bizarre, really. Like, it doesn't. It beggars belief. When you look at the Munster Hurling Championship and then you compare it to the All-Ireland stages in football, you look at how cutthroat one is with so much jeopardy, and then you look at another that has no cutthroat nature and basically zero jeopardy.
Yeah, and I just wonder with Harte as well, because he's been around for so long. He's had all the plaudits you could possibly get in the past. And now he's taken a team that it was flying and he won a league, and he'll get his credit for that and did get his credit for that. And it feels like he's fair game now because he's had all the positives. Here comes the negatives when your team isn't going well. Like, do you get that sense that, and I think Joe Brawley had a particularly strong headline, no surprise.
I think, to be fair, Joe's nearly only waiting for it now at this stage, though, to be fair, you know what I mean?
But because he's coming from a county that would traditionally, hate Harte and his crew, like that people in general are lining up.
Yeah, and Sean Kavanagh's always seems to be lining up to have a go at him from what I could see as well. Yeah, it's just mad how the wheels have come off. Like, you couldn't have predicted it. They were in the top 3, and some people saying they were number 2 of the top 3 after the league. And God, I don't know where they are now, but they're miles off it. And it doesn't look like this is something that can be turned around realistically at this stage.
Did you see? You obviously saw the Conor Turbot finish against Derry, and the way he brilliantly held on to the ball, little dummy solos, and obviously Oran Lynch was sprinting back the wrong way, as was Brendan Rodgers. But the composure and the way he finished it, I loved it. You see top corner goals and they're spectacular and all that kind of stuff, but just the way he made a Mickey out of everybody and passed it into the net, it was gorgeous. And then did you see the turnover goal that Shane Walsh got against Westmeath?
Yeah.
So he was lining up to shoot, but did the solo and then instantly shot straight away after. I thought both of those goals were brilliant. I'd probably just about give it to Turbot because he had 2 players in front of him. But what brilliant goals. And I'd love to know from the viewers, like, which goal did they find that bit sweeter?
2 class finishes and just really, really cool in 2 high pressure scenarios. The Westmeath one was unfortunate from a Westmeath point of view because they were trying to force the issue, and Ray Kennellan had a very good game to that point and was one of the best players probably on the pitch. And it kind of looks like, from a Westmeath point of view, they had a couple of opportunities last year to get results, and I know they did get a draw last year, but like, they're probably not going to qualify now, realistically, and they've been close both years. But that was a bit of a missed opportunity from their point of view, you'd have to say. And in fairness to Walsh and Galway, when the opportunity arose, they took it well. And Galway obviously have plenty of injuries as well, and are becoming very adept at winning games without big players at the minute as well. And that's kind of been a common theme throughout Connacht and even throughout the All-Ireland stages as well. So, yeah, they're dangerous. They're going to be dangerous if they get everyone back in the pitch.
Yeah, might as well just quickly look through the tables there at GA League tables, had them up. So round 3 fixture, we'll see Galway against Armagh, and both of those teams are through and have 4 points apiece. So it's basically a shot to see who gets an extra week off, and that is very important, as we found out last year.
Hey, just on Westmeath, Derry is some Westmeath. That's some carrot for Westmeath potentially if they're able to get a result. But as Mickey Harte said, I think he was chatting to BBC. He just said, like, at the minute we're going to struggle to beat anyone. But it is an opportunity for Desi Dolan and the boys. Big opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Then we'll go into Group 2, also on GA League tables. Dublin top along with Mayo, 4 points apiece each. Roscommon and Cavan have that straight shootout. And again, it is good that you have the carrot of Dublin Mayo to see who gets the weekend off. It's not the absolute be all and end all, but like there's something to play for there. And obviously Roscommon and Cavan is a straight shootout. Division 3, Cork, they're top at 4 points and through. They'll have to face Tyrone on the final weekend. Donegal and Tyrone both on 2 points. And Donegal, I suppose, would fancy themselves to be clear, but 3 goes through out of 4. So again, that's a bit of a shame because it takes away some of the jeopardy. And then final group, Kerry, they've got a plus 25 scoring difference after 2 games, battering both Monaghan and Meath. Louth, they're in great shape there as well. You'd have to say Ger Brennan, he's done a really good job, hasn't he?
He's done a savage job. They should have got the victory the other night by all accounts, and will be disappointed that they didn't. But imagine you had said when Harte, like imagine you said after the league, shall we say, when Derry won the league, that like the Louth team that he left would be in a much better position to qualify from the All-Ireland stages and have qualified than the Derry team that he's taken on that are now All-Ireland contenders. It's amazing. A couple of weeks is a long time in the GAA. The wheel can turn very, very quickly.
Geez, Dublin beat Cavan very handily, 5-17 to 13 points. Your baby's starting to kick off there, so we might more or less...
No, it's not. It's the dog, actually, to be honest with you.
Oh, wait.
He's trying to get out, Jay. He's trying to get out. He's locked in here at the minute with me at the minute. Yeah, but okay. Just on that, James McCarthy, I think, and Lee Gannon, both unavailable for Mayo. And I know as you're saying, it's a bit of a shoot. I think it was confirmed in the Hyde, for the Hyde this morning, I think. But like, how many people are going to show up to this game? There's 75 people at a Tailteann Cup game over the weekend. Like, my gosh.
Watford and Longford. I mean, that is shocking, and that was at a neutral venue, as far as I know. Yeah, that was in Portlaoise as well. But 75 people, so there was probably more people between the two setups, players and backroom team, than there was otherwise. Like, where do you go, or where does a competition go when it draws only 75 people to it?
Yeah, it's very, very worrying, and just. From what happened on the pitch, it was a brilliant win for Waterford, and it's been a while since they've had 2 championship wins in 1 year. You'd have to say, from Paddy Christie's point of view in Longford, it has been an unmitigated disaster. Like, blown away by Kildare, beaten the last day, beaten by Waterford. That's not good for them. Okay, so we'll finish off then with the goat of the week. In the hurling, I think it probably has to be Dan Burke. Yeah, I'd go along with that. Yeah, Dan Burke was outstanding. Just the cojones for the goal as well. Screeny's inside. There's not much of the goal to aim at, and he just rifles it to the bottom left-hand corner. That was absolutely glorious. Yeah, Brian Teahan probably a little bit unlucky there as well. On the football side of things, I thought Conor Turbot was brilliant. I already went on about his goal, so I'd be happy to give it to him. Turbo was brilliant, yeah. I sounded like I know him so well. Yeah, close personal friend. We probably didn't focus enough on Cork. I would say Cork's win over Donegal, like that was a big win. Probably not a bad thing for Donegal either. Weren't beating out the gate around like that and would have learned a bit, I'd say, in defeat. I probably, one of the viewers had there about Matty Taylor's goal. Matty Taylor's goal was class. So I'm gonna give it to him on the basis of that. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, that's pretty much it from the show this week. We'll be back again on Thursday. So much to preview in the weekend coming up. So, Michael, best of luck with the dog there. Sound channel.